Alrighty, Kat. No game last week. How have the girls approached training with obviously 2 weeks of training and no game, and looking ahead to not only tomorrow night but a big final 5 games of the season as well?
Yeah, with that break, I guess, in the season, we looked at what our objectives were for individual players, and we feel that we've met those. Some of those players needed a little bit of a top up that hadn't had minutes up until that round 17, now going into 18, and those that have been our sort of regular starters, just making sure that they get the, I guess, refresh and they go again this weekend.
Obviously, we've had a few girls on international duty over the last couple of weeks. Carly obviously won't be here, but have you been able to sort of have any conversations and see how Chloe, Jackie and TJ have been going on their travels?
Yeah, obviously Jackie got some minutes with the Philippines team. Obviously, given their extensive travel back from Spain, I think she'll be one that will need to be rested from that travel. We obviously want to look after the players in terms of their risks coming back from that type of load and travel. And like you mentioned, we've got a really important sort of 5 games coming up. Chloe's obviously been back in Australia since middle of the week. She would have had a different sort of loading during the last 2 weeks in camp. She didn't play any minutes, so we're expecting her to be nice and fresh for the game tomorrow. TJ's travelled again back from Europe, a difficult one to back up on a Friday night, so we won't include her again, making sure we're minimising that chance of injury. She didn't have any minutes, so we expect her to be ready for the following week to state her claim for her position back in the squad. Carly, obviously, she'll be away with the young Matildas, but on Chloe, we'll expect her to come back in nice and fresh.
We often talk a lot about the depth of the side. So obviously you mentioned Jackie and TJ are unlikely to be available, but looking at some of the players that it must be a hard decision even to leave players out of the 16 in general. So opportunities for other players to come in. Someone like Amy's obviously come off the bench for a couple of weeks, maybe pushing for a start, and hopefully a first sign of Catherine Zimmerman as well, which would be really exciting.
Yeah, I still have headaches. In terms of selection. So, I mean, that's how you can compete this time of the season. We're in a great position and we call on every player of the squad. They know what their role is. And as I've mentioned before, those roles might change week to week. And we've got that depth and those players are stepping up, which is really pleasing. So Zim will be in the match day 16, which is an exciting milestone for the club and for her personally over her sort of long tenure on the sidelines. And of course, Amy Medwin's come back and look like she hasn't missed a game in months or years. So it's really pleasing that our environment can enable those players to reach the levels they are and can beyond. With the professional setup we have here. So big credit to the staff behind the scenes. They've been working with our players, whether it's returning from injury or those players trying to break into the starting 11.
We consistently talk about the principles and the process that you've sort of brought in since you came in. It sort of feels like yesterday still, but it has been quite a significant portion of the season. But in particular, I feel like the last time we played Canberra was maybe the first real sign of the players starting to really take things on board, particularly in that second half where we piled on the pressure.
Yeah, and I think that was probably the point where we needed to build on consistency in terms of our performance, and those consistent execution of our game style will be enough to get the results we want, and we're obviously going on that run. So again, that's why we don't move away from that. We know what works, we continue to adapt and evolve on that, and we get that little bit better each day.
Have you maybe shown the players a couple of things from that Canberra game, and obviously you're always analysing every other game as well, but being the opponent tomorrow, have you looked at a couple of things in particular as some of the highlights and some of those triggers that were really impressive in that Canberra game? Yeah,
I mean, yes or no, not meaning to sit on the fence in response to your question, but we're not the team we were when we played them last round. So again, we know perhaps we can take some evidence, confidence, belief in what we know could work and I doubt that Canberra's the team they were then. So we know that teams are going to evolve, adapt, and we're trying to make sure that we're staying above anyone else and we're setting a new benchmark for ourselves each week.
Talking about Canberra, they're obviously an interesting proposition to come up against, so free scoring, but also I think joint most conceded at the other end. It's probably not reflective of, or the performance is not necessarily reflective of the position on the table. Obviously the main duo of Heyman and Milivojevic also been on international duty like some of our players as well. How do you approach, I guess, that sort of dichotomy of looking to exploit their defence, having a look at some of their defensive games, while also obviously needing to remain strong at the back?
Yeah, and it's been a constant message in terms of our structures and our style of play need to cater for both sides of the game, with the ball and without the ball. So I think we're in a good position where our players still know their roles and responsibilities in each phase of the game. Obviously there'll be particular phases. I'm talking, attack, defence, in transition, either way. Obviously Canberra is probably one of the teams that is one of the highest attacking transition teams.